Here's a run through of the lecture component of the modular facade section that we're going to do. I'm illustrating on the screen right now the kind of the interior view of a glass curtain wall system with aluminum extrusions. If you notice carefully at the floor deck where the vertical mullions are, you'll see that there's an attachment clip system. So this is going to be our opportunity to really kind of get into the tectonics, the details of these systems, so that we can understand their limitations and their opportunities. So I Googled unitized curtain wall systems. This is a Google Doc image search, or a Google image search, excuse me. And this is one of the details I pulled off of it. Kind of similar to the bracket system we're going to make. Not quite as, this is more flexible than the one we do, but nonetheless, to get you thinking about this idea of what happens at this attachment point. You can see these are actually an aluminum extrusion clip system. You can see how the panel system is hung. The panel is on the right-hand side, and it's hung on the clip, which is attached to the floor, and it's attached by those two bolts. And you'll notice that the bolt, there's serration along that extrusion, and it's a slot in it, so you're allowed to move that channel back and forth in order to precisely align the facade. And that's because the floor decks that are cast, the concrete floor decks, are not necessarily completely precise. That's something that's very difficult to control in the field, and this is a way of making sure we can build a precise facade on the exterior of the less precise floor decks. You'll also notice that there's a channel or a recess in the floor where the bolts are fastened to, and that's pre-placed into the concrete before the concrete is poured. So we have that idea of the attachment system, and then we have the idea of the aluminum extrusions that will form the modular component. And I think this is a really terrific example of that kind of a detail. At first, it can look a little bit intimidating because it looks so complex. But if you start to see, first of all, the symmetry through it going diagonal here, you'll notice that the two halves are just mirror images of each other. And there's these splice elements that allow you to bring these panels together with some, and I can't point all the way up there, but there's some splines that fit in those to make it watertight. And so we're going to do a relatively simplified version of this. We're going to actually make that drawing. Now, facade systems, modern facade systems obviously are not new. But these are, I think, two great examples, kind of spanning probably almost 100 years here. This is from the Bauhaus. This is Walter Gropius, the idea of a modernist idea of buildings. And then you can see how those concepts have really held true and are probably just reinforced in contemporary work. This is a really interesting glass facade system by ZGF. I think if you were to look back at what was done in the Bauhaus thinking, that would have not been modular. I think this is the new twist that we probably bring to this idea to development of the facade in the 20th and 21st centuries. And so I want you to keep this idea while we're doing the project, that we're trying to balance this idea of the building construction technology with the art of our design. And that's kind of what this idea of building tectonics is all about, or facade tectonics is all about. So we need to dig a little bit into the details so that we can express our ideas in both beautiful ways and in very functional ways. And just another example of a modular facade system. We're going to spend a lot of time looking at these. A contemporary one by Shop Architects. And I just have the illustration over my head showing you how these are modular panels, but each panel is not identical, so they grow together to create a facade where it might be actually difficult to determine what the actual module is within the componentry. And this is just another image of a modular facade system. You'll notice where the workmen are. You can see the clips at their feet, the attachment bracket. You can see how they're installing the panel from the interior of the building, which is one of the great advantages of these kind of facade systems. You can work basically protected from the weather. You're not having to work up multiple stories in order to attach a facade system. So you can work in a line and spend the time to make sure they precisely align and that they're completely sealed with each other. I'd also want you to note that this facade has a lot of visual interest in it, between the looks like the venting or louvering system to the mixture of brick and the white massing elements that are attached with it. Another thing to address, and this is just another series of imagery I guess to help prepare you for what we're going to be looking at, is the idea that these are still performing like rain screen systems. So even though we have a glass facade, we still have the channels, the attachment systems, and we're always thinking about the ways we're directing water, ventilating the system, and dealing with the other issues that might come along with water intrusion. So I'll next pick that up with a few case studies.